In this video, we will be covering the usage of your BDP with firmware s2.36 or newer. So to get to your BDP, assuming it has a internet connection, it should have checked in with mybryston.com, a network equipment portal for Bryston equipment. Otherwise, the manual included with your BDP should outline other ways of getting connected with your BDP. So in this case, on this network, I have 2 BDP Pis and a BDP2 online. My BDP1 is currently unplugged. So I'm going to do this demonstration on my BDP2. And here we have the dashboard. A few settings of note on the dashboard is disk information. So if you're using local storage, which I am not, and if you're having difficulties getting a USB drive to work, you should come in here, check to make sure it is listed, and whether or not it's mounted or not. If it's dark gray like these, they are mounted. If they are blue, they are not. So you just click it and then click mount. The next option of note is the audio devices page. From here, you can activate a software volume control, or if you have a DSD capable DAC that isn't one of our DACs, you would come in here and select it. Oh, right, these aren't DSD capable, right? You would click it and then click apply, and that would enable or tell the BDP that your DAC will play back DSD. The only thing of note on the network interfaces page that might be of interest is the advanced button, where you can change the device's name. The update firmware page, so when new update becomes available, you'll be prompted and you will find this little README file. Now the firmware that I'm currently using is a pre-release version, so the BDP thinks that this version is the latest version, but it is not, or at least when this video becomes available, it won't be. If the BDP ever asks for a username and password, they should always be Bryston, all lowercase. And really, the only setting you're probably ever going to want to change in here is the maximum playlist length. By default, this I think is set to 300. If you want your current playlist to be longer than that, you'll have to increase it. Click save and restart the BDP. The system log, there's not really much in there, or the startup log. The next useful item would be the NAS setup page. From here, you can tell the BDP to connect to a network share. I will quickly demonstrate that. So the first thing it does is it will go out and search for devices. If you already know the information you're looking for, you can just start typing it in. Now, as it needs a username and password, I'm going to start by filling that information in first. Now that it has checked my network, so I'm going to go and look for my oh, there it is. There's the computer with my network shares. And I'm going to click next. And then on this next page, I am going to select the network share, which we'll say is this network share. And you don't have to collect the subfolder, but so this doesn't take very long, I'm just going to select one. And next. And there it goes. It has added the network share. Now I'm just going to remove this. There we go. And then the next useful page might be the services. From here, you can either tell the BDP to behave in a different fashion, such as to act as a roaming endpoint, as a AirPlay device. There's a couple of different programs that will do that. A couple programs that will do squeeze light, and some DLNA options. Generally, though, if you just want to play music off of local storage or from a NAS, MPD would be the best option. SharePlay is good if you want to stream stuff from an Apple device like an iPhone or an iPad. If you've already invested in Rune, that's also an option. With that said, every BDP that has ever shipped should be generated a free 60-day trial key to at least try Rune. And that covers the settings. So next I will go into the dashboard. Now, new to this version, s2.36, the BDP will remember if you last viewed the default view page or this new artist page. And will also remember which was the last artist profile you had viewed. In this case, it was Adele. Now, by default, this isn't going to either A, look like this, or B, may display a message saying that the feature is turned off. So to get this looking exactly like this, there's a couple options you need to change. And we've also updated how the settings page is handled, because, well, there's quite a number of additional changes. So they're broken down into these 6 groups. The first one, general, should be settings relative to the media player interface in general. So in this case, song title marquee, suppressing the media player messages or messages in the media player, and to invert the color. Granted, this is a Manic Moose wide thing, so it'll also affect the dashboard and the settings pages as well, but they still kind of fit under this here. The next one affects the default view. Most of these settings are the same as before. In fact, I think they're all the same as from before. Then we get into the artist view. Only one option in here, and basically this is basically how it will sort the albums in relative to profiles that are local to your BDP, whether they be on NAS or a USB drive. And the two options is to sort by album title or by the album's date. And then we have the Bryston database. So this is, we've had the Bryston database in previous releases. It's what originally allowed the artist view to be generated, and we've now included this music scraper, which is what allows the BDP to go out and grab additional data about an artist in your database. And there's a bit more on that as well. If you have a BDP 1, you might want to turn this option on. It will basically require less processing power to process your music database. So if you find your BDP 1 is locking up while it's building the database, then you may want to turn this on. Merge similar genres. This feature is still pretty early in its development. Basically what it will do is try to match similar genres based off of existing profiles. So basically the idea of this is to cut down on the number of genres are generated in the Bryston database. And then these are just file name priorities for cover art, artist tag to use. Artist is the one that's set by default, but most people probably want to change that to album artist. And then these two buttons will allow you to clear the cache. Because we have the music scraping going on, earlier versions of the units like the BDP1, the BDP2, have limited local storage. You can get around that by setting a scratch drive, which you can do in disk information, shown earlier. And you can use that to clear it. And this down here, space used, is an indication of your user space. So in this case, I'm only using 6%, and I'm still using my local user space. I haven't set up a scratch drive yet. So depending on how big your music library is, this will either fill up very quickly or very slowly. If you have a BDP Pi, or better yet, a BDP3, it has a very large user space, essentially because in the last weeks, months of finalizing the BDP3, we were already working on the music scraper. So we included a larger storage device for it. And then reset the database will force a rebuild of the Bryston database, which it should do every time you add new music. You may have noticed when I added that network share and removed it, you would have seen this message in the lower right hand corner. Now this music library is quite small, it's only a few thousand songs in size, so it builds pretty quickly. And keep in mind this is a 2 as well, the BDP3 is much faster. Where your music is stored does play a bit of a role during the first build, but once it gets past the first build, it should be much faster. And then fifth here, we've started integrating Tidal into the Bryston database, or not the Bryston database, into the media player. So we've added a spot where you can enter in your credentials, select a sound quality. Now lossless is still a little hit or miss, so you may find that you need to lower it to high. Still looking into that, and it also gives you a status of whether or not you're logged in or not. And then finally is MPD, which the only thing in here is the crossfade. This will only work when the song that you're currently playing and the next song to be played are of the same resolution. Setting it to 0 will turn it off. Setting it for, say, 5 will crossfade total of the last 5 seconds with the first 5 seconds of the next track. I'm going to turn that on. Okay, yeah, so so now that you know how to turn on the music scraper, we'll just go through a profile. That little throbber that was down here, that indicates that it's still loading things, particularly the missing releases and the missing singles. Those will be taking abundance of the time it takes to load a profile, simply because it just does them one at a time. Doesn't want to hammer the system with them all at once. And you may notice down here under missing releases that there is a little title icon for 19. And some of these tracks are dark gray versus a light gray. Well, what this signifies is tracks belonging to this album are available through Tidal. So even if you don't have a Tidal account, it'll still play 30-second clips. So if we just hit the play button here. I've made up my mind, don't need to. We'll just stop that and clear, and yeah, that just played from title. And there's also a click and hold function that will allow you to choose from different options. And then, of course, there are the albums that you have. So in this case, I have 25 and 21. They work in a similar fashion. And on top of that, we will attempt to identify similar artists. Now keep in mind this music collection is quite small. Like I said before, it's only a few thousand songs. So if it has a title icon, that means the artist profile that you're about to select is not local to your music collection, but is part of titles collection. Now this profile I've already loaded up. I'm sure I will stumble across a profile that is not already local to or hasn't already been cached, but it will cache data to load up other profiles much faster. And you can also see there's some social links here. If we go back to Adele, you'll notice this gets cut off. So if we just click here, it extends, and we can now see social links or wiki articles, which will come up inside the browser. And then from here, you can either close it or open it in a new tab. The Facebook links are a bit hit or miss. Homepages generally work unless they're not actually available. And I found if they are up and running, they do work reasonably well, despite going through a proxy system to make this all work. Oh, you can also edit a profile. So if it's either incorrectly identified an artist, or maybe you want to change the images, there is a edit this profile option here. Selecting the ID will allow you to change the artist to a different profile. As you can see, there's quite a few artists identified just by the word or name, just Adele. And we can also update the images as well. Just clicking the image will look for what other images are available, and just clicking that image will replace the image that's in the profile. See? Yeah, so we'll go to who have I not? Maybe this one. Yeah, so here's a good example of a profile from title that has not been selected yet. So as it loads the profile, it will basically bring up the tabs as they become relevant, and when the profile is fully loaded, the throbber will go away. As I mentioned earlier, the singles and missing releases generally take the longest to populate. And yeah, so again, we can let's play from here. So yeah, that's the artist view. The default view. So again, if you don't have the Bryston database enabled, these options down here will not be shown. And the default view, more or less, you do your navigation via the file folder structure of your content. And you can either click on these pluses to add the entire folder, or you can add individual songs to the playlist. Pretty straightforward. What else to show off? Oh, the search feature. So if you're looking for an artist that isn't in your collection but is could be on Tidal, you can just search for it. Oh, I guess I do have Leonard Cohen. But anyways, as you can see here, it shows your local results first, followed by results from Tidal. Yeah, and those results won't go away unless you remove the search criteria. So yeah, that's the introduction to the BDP running s2.36.